Welcome to Red Light, Green Light, the podcast where seasoned leaders and top-tier executives in science, tech, pharma, finance, and innovation open up and get real with me and with you. You'll hear personal stories from key moments of their career arcs and how they've struggled and succeeded when it comes to moving audiences from the red light of risk to the green light of go. I'm Cindy Skalicky, storytelling strategist and author of the best-selling book, Red Light, Green Light, How Top Leaders Present with Polish, Get Buy-in, and Become More Influential. On this podcast, you'll hear from an exceptional invite-only lineup of leaders who've been in the room and at the table when stakes were high, decisions were hard, and their stories had to land. This is where expert minds share stories that shape the future. What's more, you'll walk away with tips you can try immediately to drive the vision of innovation with your team. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Red Light, Green Light. I am your host, Cindy Skalicky, and today we have a very special guest, Greg Dewey of Northern Water. And I would like to give a brief introduction of Greg and the work that he and his team does here in Colorado. And we've got some interesting storytelling to share today about one of our most precious resources, which is water. Ironically, and before I share Greg's intro, I live in Northern Colorado and I got a piece of mail about 2 months ago. And it was like, hey, your water's going to be turned off for the entire day. Hope that's okay, right? We had road construction. And so it kind of piqued my interest into learning more about waterways and how water operates because I didn't have it for 8 straight hours. And it wasn't a massive inconvenience, but it really made me appreciate water. And I know a lot of our listeners are probably like me and don't really think a lot about it on a daily basis until you don't have it, right? So Greg Dewey is the Senior Project Manager and Water Resource Engineer at Northern Water here in it's Loveland, Berthoud, Colorado. Northern Water serves more than 1 million people here across numerous counties, and they oversee some of the most important water infrastructure in the Western U.S. About 190 people at Northern Water. And Greg brings a great background from growing up on a family farm, and so brings the bent of agriculture to the mix. And he's been in water for over, well, that sounds funny, right? He's been in water for over 30 years. So, Greg, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Cindy, so much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start by talking about your family farm, maybe, and the link between agriculture and water. Tell us a little about your farm growing up and how you ended up where you are, if you can skip a few stones for us.
Yeah, absolutely. So probably the first stone is my family's been in Colorado for generations, and on my mom's side and my dad's side, they both owned family farms that had been the family generations. So when I was a kid growing up, we would farm those, especially in the summer. My dad had a
Like
job.
animals or cows? What kind of farms?
We did row crops, which was often used to feed cows.
Okay.
But we experimented with different animals as well.
Yeah. Okay.
About 60 irrigated acres.
Nice.
And
Wow.
ironically, I knew that water was important, and some of the water that we received actually came from the project, the Colorado Big Thompson project, which Northern Water operates.
Okay. Fantastic. And then what about your learnings and education? Like I'm always curious what a person studied when they come into kind of this niche type of area where, in this case, it's a utility, right? Would you call it a utility, a municipality? What's the proper wording?
Yeah, I would definitely call it a utility
Okay.
because we serve water. And
Yeah.
I'd say the utilities across the nation have done a great job of providing safe, clean, reliable water, especially for drinking.
Yeah.
so it's very accessible.
Yeah.
Um, I went to school and got a civil engineering degree,
Mm.
and I knew that I wanted to work in water. I just felt that, and ironically, I was this time of year reminds me that graduation parties are a big deal.
Mhm.
Just as a quick aside, my youngest daughter is 15.
Mhm.
She finished her freshman year at high school, and she was invited to 10 parties.
Okay.
So we, my wife and I, took her around to all the parties, and I attended a couple of those. But that just reminded me of the importance of graduation parties because after my junior year of college, and this goes back to 1990, I attended a graduation party in my hometown of one of my friends from high school.
Sure.
And I said, I want to get in the water. And a woman overheard me. And she said, well, you need to talk to my husband.
Hmm.
Little did I know that she lived 2 blocks from me in the small town we grew up in. And I talked to him and he set me on this path. So I was able to get an internship where he worked, which was the State Division of Water Resources.
Okay.
And they administer the water rights in the state. They can tell who is entitled to the water, how much they.
Okay.
I learned a lot of different things, and through that, that led to uh, groups with stakeholders, many of whom were federal agency representatives.
Oh, interesting.
That led to uh, a part-time job while I was in college. So
Okay.
following, so in December of 1990, I started part-time with the Bureau of Reclamation, which
Hmm.
is a federal agency which actually cooperated with Northern Water many years ago to build the Colorado Big Thompson project, and they operate several projects throughout the West.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Fantastic.
So
There's well, let me pause you there, Greg, and just highlight for those listening and watching, you know, isn't it amazing how one conversation or networking connection that is either purposeful or accidental can help our shift our trajectory? What a fortuitous situation at that graduation party. You just never know who's going to cross your path, right? And I'm
so
curious,
true.
was that a really fleeting thing? Like did you ever speak to that person again, or did you end up staying connected?
We stayed connected, and I would consider him my most important mentor.
Oh my
I
gosh. Okay, say a little more about that. I would love to hear that.
So this gentleman's name is Alan Berryman, and
Okay.
he mentored me during that summer, and then he helped me get connected to people at the Bureau of Reclamation, and I stayed in touch with him throughout my entire career. Anytime I made a transition, I would talk to
Oh.
him.
Hmm.
So, for example, I was at the Bureau of Reclamation for 4 years, and I felt like I it was feeling like a consulting firm, but I didn't know enough. So I thought, well, I need to go join a consulting firm and learn how to be a consultant.
Okay.
So I talked to
Okay.
Alan about that, and then I was able to secure a position with a firm in Denver, and I was
Okay.
there 5 years. Learned a lot of great things.
Yeah.
Had some mentors there as well. But I went back to Alan and I said, my family and I would really like to move out of the Denver metro area,
Okay.
Northern Colorado. What do you think? So I talked to him about that, and he led me to my next job. And so I went to the city of Loveland. And I was there for 18 years.
Okay.
And what's interesting is that about that same time when I went to city of Loveland, Alan went to Northern Water.
Oh, okay.
And so he was at Northern Water. And so I was still working with him as a colleague on different joint projects.
Sure. From different places. And then eventually, I suspect, you ended up when did you start at Northern Water, Greg?
In 2017.
Okay. Okay. So it's been 9 years for you to be there. And this person in your life, I mean, that's one of the reasons I love that question about mentorship and, who would you tip your hat to, which kind of folded into our conversation automatically. But it's such a great reminder to all of us listening. You are mentoring someone, maybe whether you realize it or not. And we all have someone we could probably shoot a quick note to thank them for things they did for us in our career paths or life paths that they may not know, but wouldn't they be, you know, warmed to hear from all of us with a quick word of something positive? Because, I mean, we're all working, but we're also humans and we care about the impact we have on other people. And it's a great reminder, your story, Greg, around, the mentorship power of just that one relationship that you nurtured. And so often it's easy to forget to nurture it, and that's where the real value is, right? So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that, Greg. I'd like to turn us toward Northern Water, and I wonder if you could think of a couple of things that people might not know about the water industry, or maybe some just blind spots that your average Joe wouldn't realize is part of the work that you do, the things that you have to think about strategically and eventually, bring to stakeholder audiences at the board level or community level. Can you give us a little understanding of some behind the scenes facts or surprising details?
Yeah, I think when people think of Northern Water or a utility, they might think about the water that they receive and the fact that the water has to be provided.
Right.
And we spend a lot of time talking about the supply side, but
Mhm.
also a demand side, which the customer has more control over. And
Okay.
I think what's interesting is that we spend a lot of time thinking about that and trying to find ways to encourage people to
Mhm.
use less or use it wisely. If you think about how your water's used inside your house, I would say the majority of it is probably used outside. And
Okay, yeah, that makes sense with sprinkler systems, right?
yep,
And, which is interesting, Greg, because, in certain parts of the country where I've lived, like Illinois or Georgia or, Virginia, the sprinkler systems was not a thing at all, and so sometimes, I'm sure you're aware, right? People come here and they're like, "How do you manage a sprinkler system?" But here, you're totally right. We're a very dry climate, and we need water outside, that's prompted, through human means, right? Because we just don't get a lot of rain.
right, exactly. And so we have a conservation garden on our campus
Yes, I've
where
been to it with you.
yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, and it's really fun to see this year with we're in a drought, which means we're not
Mhm,
getting a lot of rain, but to
mhm.
see what's thriving right now.
Mm,
And some of the
yeah,
more plants that use less water generally actually like this climate. They're doing better
okay,
than first things. So
yeah,
um yeah, I think it's important to think about how you use water and see if
mhm.
there's ways you can use it wisely. And generally if you use less, you're going to pay less for it as well.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Has that shifted in recent decades, Greg, around usage and pay pay for use?
Yeah, there were times, believe it or not, probably in the 60s and 70s, there were some communities that didn't have any water meters. And so you just paid a flat rate
Oh,
regardless
wow.
how much.
Yeah.
And now we really, if you look at your bill, there's typically what we call a base charge, which is a standard amount you pay each month. And that's to
Mhm,
cover the utilities expenses month to month.
mhm.
And then there's a use charge, which is based on how much you use.
Right. Okay.
So in the winter time, you're not using much outside at all. So your bill will be less. But in the summer, if you turn on your sprinklers and use a lot, you'll pay
Mhm.
more.
Yeah, got it. Well, it's interesting. I live near one of the man-made lakes here in Fort Collins, and we we lease water from Greeley, I'm pretty sure is where we get the water from. And I was just walking over the one of the bridges on the street where you can see the water when it comes in every spring. And I actually took a video of it and showed it to we have a little family chat, and I was like, the water's coming in because the lake will go up so that the boats can get on it, and we can have that consumer benefit, as you were saying earlier. Like we have, the desire to use the water in multiple ways, whether it's on a boat or for drinking or irrigation or whatever it might be. And so that's one of the things I've noticed about when I care about the water. So,
You know what I think is really interesting about that example is that, Greeley and your lake are have rights on the same river,
Okay.
but because Northern Water's system, the Colorado Big Thompson project, actually spans several rivers, we can deliver that water. So typically, and our water is typically what communities are renting out to other individuals or
Mhm.
companies.
Mhm.
So we call it CBT water that gets rented. So Greeley owns it. They rent it to your lake. They work with us to get it delivered, and then it ends up in your lake.
Okay. Um, for those out there who might be like me, I'm going to ask one of the most basic questions ever, okay? Because I'll have to be honest, until I became a homeowner and lived near water at all, I really was like, wow, people own water. Like, how do you start owning water? Right? It's like, it's not like you buy it like a house, right? I mean, maybe it is, but help me understand the market for water. Like, who in Greeley actually owns is it rights to the water? Is that a better way to think about it? And, well, let me start with one question. When did that become a thing? Like owning water or water rights?
That goes way back to before Colorado was a state.
Yeah, I figured it was a long time back. Yeah. Do you know a little more you could share?
Yeah. So we have a rich history here in mining.
Hmm.
And when people were using water from the rivers and streams for their sluices or hydraulic, um, they
Hmm.
were using water, and somebody would use water, and then somebody would come later and start diverting above and take the water. And so
Okay.
eventually they started to realize, well, wait a minute, the people that were here first should have the right to the water first.
Okay.
And that translated to agriculture. There's an interesting story on the Poudre River back
Hmm.
in 1870s that
Okay.
um, there's a group of farmers from the Greeley area and a group of
Mhm.
farmers from the Fort Collins area, and there wasn't enough water to go around. So when the Greeley farmers realized their water was not there, they marched up the river and they found where it was being diverted, and they started to come to fisticuffs.
You're
And
kidding.
they decided maybe we better cooler heads prevailed, and it actually started to rain. So
Oh, you're kidding. Interesting.
yeah,
Wow,
uh,
that's a great story. Yeah, like, we're gonna duke it out over water because it is, like I said earlier, it's a source of life, and we need it for so many different things, and when there's a shortage, there's a natural conflict that could brew at any given moment, so,
yeah.
um,
So
super interesting.
you fast
Yeah,
forward, and how a lot of the conflicts on the Pooter are what forced collaboration and our water law that we have today. And so there are several, we call them ditch companies, that
mhm,
started diverting water for crops.
mhm,
And there's an orderly list that they can divert in. And then there's cities that owned water. And so that's what the state Division of Water Resources, they make sure that that gets administered correctly.
okay,
Yeah. You fast forward back to the 30s when it was very dry here. And
mhm,
farmers said, I wish we had another source of water that we could use. And so that was the impetus for the Colorado Big Thompson project.
okay,
And so our water is really meant to be an additional source that people can use to raise a full crop or
yeah,
for cities to use. But
fantastic,
what's interesting when that developed was it was a hard sell because this was during the 30s, and they were selling contracts or allotments. We call it an acre foot unit.
okay,
It was meant to deliver 1 acre foot every year, but that's not how it works out. But anyway, to the original sales were $1.50 per acre foot unit
okay.
in the 30s, and then pay $1.50 a year for maintenance.
Oh, not
And
bad.
fortunately, my great grandfather bought 25 of those units
You're kidding.
for his farm. Yeah,
Wow.
great. And then over time, if you fast forward, people realized that they could move this water around pretty easily. It just
Mm,
required our board to approve it.
mhm,
So, uh, as developers started building houses and you could use the water for that as well, the demand went up, and the demand has shot up so much that those acre foot units are selling for anywhere from 65 to $70,000. each.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's incredible. Did those shares that your great grandfather or grandfather bought, did he keep those, pass them down
Yeah,
to the family members? Amazing. Wow, Greg, that is fascinating. I mean, I figured the value transition had to be significant, but wow, that is more than I was expecting you to say. And telling, right? I
yeah.
think that's super interesting. Greg, let's turn to the sort of stakeholder conversations that you've started mentioning, and let's just talk about communications skills in the realm of the work you do. I would be curious to hear, you and I met many years back through happenstance. Also, I would say, we met through my uncle who invited me to speak at a group that you belong to, and we connected and have stayed in touch ever since, which has been awesome. And loved having a
Same.
tour of the facility with you down at Northern Water and learning more about it. It's a beautiful facility for anyone listening nearby who would love to. They give tours, right?
Yes.
All throughout the facility, and the garden, the conservation garden, if that's what you call it, is available. It's outdoors and it's beautiful. There's actually one there that I took a picture of. I remember it. It's called bluegrass because it's grass that's blue. But I thought that was so funny.
Yeah,
But I also remember you giving me a peek at the boardroom. I have a picture of it.
yeah.
I just thought it was such a beautiful boardroom. So, what happens inside that boardroom? And talk to us about some red light and green light moments in the work that you do and observe.
Yeah, so the boardroom is where we have our meetings. There's 2 each month,
Hmm.
and the board consists of representatives which are appointed by judges.
Okay.
They are representatives of the 8 counties that we serve.
Okay.
So there's I believe we're at 13 members now, and we have a board emeritus member as well,
Hmm.
provides wisdom.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, that it's important because this organization and most of the organizations that I've worked with, except for consulting, are governed by a board that provides policy, direction, and overall governance.
Hmm.
And so, anytime staff is doing the work directed by the general manager, and the general manager serves at the will of the board.
Hmm.
So, some of the red light, green light moments I've seen is when, and it's interesting because you talk about this in your book on page 88. You
Oh,
talk,
wow. Age mention. This is great. That's a first. You're
um,
you're moving up the list, Greg. No. Tell our listeners what's on page 88.
well, it's when you're serving not a new product, but maybe a new strategic direction.
Okay. Right.
And that really resonated with me because
Hmm.
that's my world.
Yeah.
And so red light, green light moments are when I see colleagues who go in, and the red light moment is they don't know the audience. They don't
Hmm.
realize, these people that serve on the board are volunteers. They come twice a month. They're there sometimes all day and
Yes.
sitting in a meeting. And, sometimes they just need to know, what are you asking of them?
Directly, clearly, succinctly. Yeah.
And so they don't even really think about like the offer, like what are
Hmm.
you asking?
Hmm.
And they spend a lot of time feature dropping or giving too many details.
Right.
So, which, they're so excited about the idea that they want to talk about it.
Yeah. Let me ask you, when you are in those rooms and you are seeing the feature dropping and the detail, have you ever taken a look around the room? What kind of behavior, non-verbally or whatnot, or energy in the room, like how does that shift? I think it's such an important thing for leaders to be really heighten their awareness of what happens in the room when those things happen. So what do you notice in the rooms where you are?
I feel like the oxygen's being sucked out of the room.
Okay.
And I don't see it so much on the board members because they're all very professional,
Sure.
but I see people in the room look down at their shoes, pull out their phones,
Yeah.
start working on their computers, anything they
Mhm.
can do besides listening to what's happening.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. How about some green light speakers? Have you had some situations where you're like, now that's refreshing. That's really, that landed, and this is what was going on in the room. Talk to us a little about what the ingredients are for that.
Yeah, I would say one of my one of my favorite speakers, I'll just use the word, his name's Frank.
Hmm.
But anyway, he when he would speak, he would get up and he would have a really good hook.
Okay.
And and sometimes it was corny, sometimes it was a dad joke.
Okay. Hey, that still works sometimes.
It does. For him, it did. It's really funny, because he would pride himself on those. He's not a dad, but he knew all these dad jokes.
Oh, that's even funnier. Okay.
He had nowhere else to use them.
He's like, I am going to get your attention, whether you like it or not. Right.
But it would get your attention, yeah, and then he would orient us, and then he'd be like, "Okay, this is what I'm looking at, what,"
Hmm.
and then he would almost get them leaning on the edge of their seat
Wow.
to ask for more,
Yeah.
and then he'd be invited, he would tell a little bit more, and, he would he would often leave with an offer, but he'd also leave some questions unasked,
Hmm. Oh, I like that.
because then that gets the audience thinking, "Okay, I like this. I wanna stay engaged, and, oh,
Mhm,
you thought of this," and,
mhm.
of course, then it makes the audience feel smart too.
Sure, exactly, exactly. Yeah, you've done your reading, Greg, I can tell. Well, how about you, Greg? What have you learned over the last, few years of being more attentive to your communication skills, in your personal orbit of skill sets? What are some things you're noticing about what works?
Well, I think I spent the majority of my career so far being more of I call it a utility player. I mean, not it's kind of a pun, but,
Yeah,
working
right.
different parts. But if you think
Mhm.
about baseball, being a utility player in baseball.
Right, that's a good thing.
Um, I'll tell you a quick story. When I was a kid, we got cable TV for the first time.
Okay.
And so I'm probably 11 years old, getting cable TV. And so we have the only channels I remember are MTV, HBO, TBS, WGN.
Okay.
So what did I watch a lot of besides movies that were inappropriate and in music videos?
Cubs baseball?
Cubs baseball.
Yes! Nailed it. Okay, keep going, you've got my attention.
Okay. Manny Trio.
Yeah.
So he started out second base, great second
Mhm.
baseman, played for the Cubs, went around the league, came back, and then he mentored Ryan Sandberg.
Mm,
He became a great second baseman.
yep, one of the
But
best.
Manny was also playing different positions in the infield.
Okay.
And then I kind of looked up other utility players, and I was remember, oh yeah, Keith Moreland, he was an
Mhm,
outfielder, and he
mhm.
switched to third base. And Larry Bittner, he's a left-handed batter. I'm left-handed, and I could never bat, but
Yeah,
he backed up first base and the outfield corners.
love it.
Chico Walker,
Yes.
second
Yes,
base, third base, outfield,
yes.
and the last one I mentioned is Gary Varsho. He was in and out all
Yeah,
the
I
time.
remember Gary. I used to see him play. He was a catcher for a while, I think. Wasn't he? I
Yeah, and
can't
then he
I
was
think
he was
so.
on the 1989 National League East championship team.
That's why I remember his name because his picture was on one of the posters in my bedroom. So anyone new to this show, I am a Cubs fan through and through, bleed Cubby blue from the time I was probably about 12, right around the age you're telling about this story, Greg. So I love that analogy, being a utility player. And are you still feeling like that's part of what makes you a great addition to so many different types of conversations? Are you shifting in any way right now?
I am shifting. I want to be. I think that served me really well. But as
Hmm.
I look, I just finished the seventh inning stretch.
Right.
I've got, I don't know, maybe 10 years to work left. I don't know. I'd
Yeah.
do some different things. I still want
Mhm.
a contribution,
Right.
but I want to be more really effective and focused. And so I'm thinking about being a closing pitcher like Lee Smith.
Love it. I love it. That's fantastic. Well, Greg, this has been a great conversation. I'd like to go down the hill toward the end here with a question about the young leaders you're seeing come in and maybe reflecting on all the shifts that have transpired in communications in general with technology that has emerged. And, you know, by the time you arrive at your place in your career, and I've seen a thing or two also, you get to kind of say you've got a little bit of wisdom around a lot of different areas, at least experience that's been built. So, what do you say to those listening who are maybe earlier in their careers and facing the kinds of communications shifts, whether that's AI or digital everything, the seeming 24-hour workday where can have any email on your you know what I mean, like, it wasn't always like this, and
Oh,
so there's different challenges. What do you share for a piece of advice with those folks?
well, yeah, like you said, it wasn't like this. I remember before email, we used fax machines,
Yes, I remember that too.
and it felt like the world was moving fast, but you had to wait for that fax to come back.
Mhm.
And so there wasn't it doesn't feel like it was as urgent as things are now. And then when, technology increased, we have email and our phones
Yeah.
especially, it's easy to be on the clock 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I would say technology is always going to change, but don't lean on it too much.
Mhm.
I mean, you still need basic communication skills. You still need to be able to tell a story.
Mhm.
You know, you need to be able to build connections and nurture those relationships.
Yep.
And mentor story is a example of that.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah.
then being able to mentor that next generation, that's what really excites me. So,
Yep.
even though AI is there, there's still a lot of discussion about how to use it or how not to use it.
Right.
And so I would say, don't spend too much time focused on that, but really don't neglect those basic communication skills.
Yeah, and the ability to learn, strategic thinking is a muscle that is so much fun to build, and it's really, I would suggest, only built from trial and error, because you need to have your own ideas, not discern which idea you would have thought up if you're looking at a bulleted list inside your AI chatbot, right? I mean, half the fun of work for me, for sure, and I would imagine for you, is the ideation, the innovation, the problem solving, and we just want to keep that muscle a human muscle for the most part, so that, because humans are the ones who use everything we have at our disposal, and we have a better perspective, and we're more creative without question than a machine. Um, I'm going to argue that maybe somebody would disagree with me, but um,
That's a
yeah,
really
those are yeah.
because
Those
you don't want to lose that muscle. It will atrophy if you don't use it.
Right, and I would suggest, especially, like, I mean, my kids are, 17 to 22, and they're just getting started on building their strategic thinking muscles, and so you and me, we've got it already, and we shouldn't let it atrophy, but, I mean, we don't wanna not build it, and that's really important in the early years of your career. So that's that's a big warning light for me, a big red light for me around the advent of AI and letting it take over too much of what makes us human and what makes innovation, accelerate to really solve problems that humans, um, need to solve. Let's actually ask that as our last question, Greg. I'm thinking about the storyline of Northern Water and also just the changes in climate. And like we're about coming up on, I know fire season's like all year long now, but we've had some really devastating fires, and there's all kinds of wind and weather related disasters that are increasing. And how does that affect the storyline of Northern Water? If it does, how and what's maybe ahead? That's a lot of questions, but I'm just trying to get a sense of going forward at Northern Water and the next chapter. Are you in the middle of a chapter, building the next one?
Yeah, I think we've launched that new chapter already. We're still trying to develop some specific parts around it, but we've had an environmental focus for many years, and
Mhm.
a lot of that involves how do you address wildfire? How do you mitigate after a wildfire? How do you embrace the watershed you're diverting from?
Mhm.
You help your customers who live in that wildland urban interface where wildfire could be present.
Yeah.
We have even developed some landscape templates that
Okay.
wildfire friendly or resistant, I hope.
Mhm.
And that was following a major wildfire that was in the Boulder area
Mhm.
last or
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yep.
So those are some of the initiatives, and we're the largest diverter of Colorado River water in the 4 states of Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, and New Mexico.
Okay.
So
Fantastic.
we're definitely involved in those issues.
Mhm.
We manage our system with, like I said before, we're trying to deliver 1 acre-foot per unit. That doesn't happen because of our hydrology, and so we're very much aware of that, and we adjust our deliveries accordingly.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we're trying to figure out how to build the. We finished one large project for
Mhm.
supply, and we're working on another large project for supply. But after that, we're really not sure what's if there are any other projects to develop. And so
Mhm.
we have another initiative we call water preservation, where we're trying to protect what we have, the base
Mhm.
supplies that our system was built on.
Okay.
There's a lot more around that you'll see, but yeah, we're trying to bring this whole picture of water supply and water use or demand together.
Yeah, that's a great answer and a great mission, right? In terms of what you're about and what you're after, and your passion for all things water is easy to see, Greg. And so it's an interesting peek into a world a lot of us don't maybe think about on a daily basis beyond the water that we drink or use. So thank you for shedding some light on some of the other areas of water in general and what you're working on at Northern Water specifically. So this was really fun.
Thank you so much. I had a great time
Yeah.
too.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, everybody, for listening, for watching. Don't forget to share this episode with someone who might want to hear it in your world and learn a little bit about the storyline underwater. That's an interesting phrase, and maybe we'll title it that storyline underwater. Thanks, Greg, so much. And everybody watching, get out there, go find yourselves an audience of stakeholders and find your way from the red light of risk to the green light of go. Don't forget to grab a copy of my book at Amazon or elsewhere. And we will be back again next week with another great guest who will share some insights into his or her storyline of strategic communications. Thanks, everybody. Bye bye.